Everyone thinks getting people off welfare is a good idea. Even both political parties think that. But what happens when people are forced into the job market before they know how to do the job? Often what follows is failure. Then the unhappy circle of welfare and poverty remains unbroken. Enter the uncommon American. The story of Sharon Darling and her family literacy program probably ought to be on the front page of every newspaper in America. What started as the personal mission of a former elementary school teacher has blossomed into a national movement. It's about much more than reading and writing.
I think the people that I started working with early on in literacy programs were people of such courage. It just became a passion for me.
Welcome to this special edition of Biography. I'm Bill Bradley. Uncommon Americans. Who are they? What makes them uncommon? Well, sometimes you hear people say things like this. If a man's hungry, don't give him a fish, teach him how to fish. This idea is the heart of Sharon Darling's work. She understands the special educational bond that exists between parent and child, and in helping parents to help their kids, she just may be helping to provide long-range solutions to persistent national problems such as poverty and welfare dependence. Of course, Sharon Darling has been teaching people how to fish for a long time now.
I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up living across the street from my grandparents, actually. They were truck farmers, and so all of them lived on the land. My grandparents and my grandfather's brothers all lived around, so I grew up in an environment that was very strong on family. My father was a home builder. He had a crew of men who worked for him. I found out, I guess, I don't know, when I was very young, that they couldn't read or write, but that they could find their way around the city, and they were excellent carpenters, and they could read a blueprint. So I think early on a seed was planted in me that did not stereotype people who didn't have literacy skills.
Sharon Darling had a fine idea, but how did a fine idea grow into a national movement?
I started teaching adults to read after the birth of my first child. I'd been a second-grade teacher. Of course, back in those days, you had to quit if you were showing in your pregnancy because it was not proper for small children to see a woman who was going to give birth. So after he was born, I decided that I would stay home and be a full-time mother.
But at a cocktail party, Sharon met a man who said, "You're a teacher. There are people who need your help. At our church, we try to give them that help. Why don't you volunteer?" So she did.
The first 5 students that I worked with in that little church, the most courageous people I'd met. I mean, they were willing to bare their soul and talk about not being able to read, and they wanted help so badly. A man showed up with a banjo under his arm, and he said, "Can you teach me to play the banjo?" And I said, "No, I don't know how to play any musical instrument." And he said, "Well, if you can't teach me to play the banjo, could you teach me to read this book? And if I can read this book, I can teach myself to play the banjo." By the time the 2 hours had passed, I knew that I was hooked. I was going to keep coming back, and I did. And that group continued to grow, and the 4 became 8, and then 16, and then we had more classes, and then we started night classes, and pretty soon my little part-time volunteer and part-time teaching effort had turned into something pretty major.
And it grew from teaching grown-ups to teaching parents and their kids. Teaching the family. And it spread, first across a city, then a state, then a nation.
Family literacy is not a Republican or a Democratic issue. It's an issue of national concern.
Sharon Darling, former school teacher, is president of the National Center for Family Literacy, an organization that spans the nation and reaches thousands of families every single year.
The National Center for Family Literacy is a nonprofit organization that really is a holistic approach to education and to policy that focuses on the family. Family literacy wasn't even a term in 1985. I mean, we didn't talk about a program being a family literacy program. And now we do a lot of work with policymakers and administrators, and we do a lot of work on the federal level, trying to make sure that the message gets embedded in Head Start legislation. It was the model for the Even Start legislation and the adult education law that's working its way through the Senate. We are squarely focused on welfare reform. We know what's going to happen with parents who are marginal in their skills as they try to go into the workforce. They're going to need a real transition, not just the basic skills. Our model brings parents together with their 3- and 4-year-olds to a school or a facility, and parents get job skills, children get the skills they need, and then parents learn to work with their own children. Carton? What's that one? Oh, bag. Another word for sack. I think the people that I started working with early on in literacy programs were people of such courage to come forward, and people who had had such battering experiences and they didn't have a voice. So to try to help, it just became a passion for me that people deserved more than they were being given.
How can you make any difference?
Very good. How can you take this home with Coco?
Family literacy gave Lori Carmen a chance at a new life. She and her 4 kids were living on welfare, AFDC, aid to families with dependent children. But once she enrolled in the family literacy program, she got her GED, her high school equivalency degree, and now teaches others what she has learned, how to read the world.
And they weren't just any kind of bubbles. They were magic bubbles. Everywhere.
I was 16 years old when I quit school in Louisville and got married. It wasn't a good relationship. We was married for 9 years, and he liked to hit. I have 4 kids, and they knew what was going on. And I just said, that's it. It's time to quit. I'm tired. I'm through. I was on AFDC and food stamps, and I didn't like it. But at that time, that's the only way I knew to, just survive.
What does this plan say? Do you get something different or about the same thing?
About the same thing.
You want to take it any farther? Any more details?
One of the major hurdles that we have to overcome in literacy programs is really helping people believe that they can learn.
I achieved my GED in March of '93. I would recommend it to anybody, because not only, do you find out that, maybe I'm smart up here, but I learned that I could do whatever I wanted to do.
That is very, very important to me, to make sure that everybody can accomplish things that they never thought they could accomplish. That's the most rewarding part of my work, and what committed me and keeps me going.
When you teach your child that different is okay, what else can happen?
Commitment to change is what keeps Yolanda Tinsley, a single mom with 3 kids,
They'll be
in
a
the program.
stronger individual.
My name is Yolanda Tinsley. I'm 25. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I jumped out of school in 1992. At the time, I was going into the 11th grade, but I didn't go back. There are many different kinds of people. Some are white and some are black. Everyone can't be the same. No, I got a second chance. I'm not going to mess it up this time. It's not never wrong to be or to feel different.
Well, good. See, what do you think about that? It's pretty good, isn't it?
I think literacy is really our ticket in society.
All of the writers in here are from some county in Kentucky.
It's your passport, so to speak, to a job. It's your access to information.
And she was also very smart for her age.
It really is about helping people have hope again, replacing hopelessness with hope.
I am in awe of this wonderful woman. I would love to know how many people have learned to read as a result of Sharon's work. She is one of my real heroes.
Is that what you had to do for homework? So you already know it? So when you get to school, you tell your teacher, right? Throw it away.
Yolanda spent her childhood taking care of her sisters, and so, to get out of her house, she got pregnant, dropped out of school, and continued a family dependence on welfare.
You got to stand right here and wait for it, okay? I started receiving welfare when I was 19. It was like a trail. I mean, my mother was on it, and my grandmother was on it, and my aunt. I mean, it's like the whole, it was going from generation to generation. And I'm determined now to get off of FDC.
If you only have 2 years before you have to get a job, and your literacy skills are way down here at, maybe what we would consider second or third grade. That's pretty frightening, to think, how am I going to be able to do this? If we care about the next generation in this nation, we really, really must this time help the parents be the nurturers and teachers of those young children that we need them to be and that their children need them to be.
Here's an elephant, and here's a panda bear. But you can make any kind of animal you choose to make. She asked me to make the man. You want to scooter, Mom? I said, yeah.
Family literacy is a way to prepare people for the workforce while we prepare them for their other really important role, and that is the role of parenting.
What you making, Brittany? What you making?
Parents and the children come together for something that we call parent and child interaction time, or PACT.
This program helps you get closer to your kids. And it helps us, teach them stuff, and plus, they also help us, teach us stuff. Like, to be patient. Yeah, I need some blunt. When I get frustrated, I know what to do. I know how to deal with it.
138, very good.
Another one, Rosa. And then it comes out to be 21 and 130.
Okay, Yolanda, you want to try one?
Meanwhile, Yolanda is learning skills to help her climb out of welfare. Skills like reading and writing and math and believing in yourself.
So 3 minus 1, 2Z. When I first came in there, I got discouraged. I gave up. I didn't have no confidence.
Everyone write the problem down.
Yolanda's a very special lady. I've seen her grow. She has really opened up. She's willing to challenge herself.
Does anyone understand that?
Yeah, I understand.
You figured it out.
Since I got on this program, it's like giving me more confidence that I can do it now. I had passed my social studies, science, and my literature, so I got like 2 more parts to pass, and I'll be done my GED. I think I had my GED before September.
What gets me up in the morning is just watching the changes in families and watching people grow. And I think we can put the power back in people if we really believe in them. And I just think we're on the right track.
I'm so proud of you, and I think you have shown a lot of courage by coming back to school, and I wish you the best. Please let me know how you're doing. If you get your GED, let me know. All right, we're going to celebrate, okay? All right.
Does Sharon Darling's program work? Listen to Laurie Carmen and see what you think.
6 8 is 48. 8 8 16.
I did not want my girls growing up the way I grew up. I want them to have their teen years. I want the same thing for the boys. I want them to be kids while they can be. I want them to grow up, have a good education, have a good paying job, and then worry about the family, the babies, the bills. Got out for welfare in '92. And then when I started working, we don't need the food stamps no more. We quit. And it was like, you can breathe easy. I'm earning my own way.
The crisis in America is one that we've recognized for so long, but we've just failed to intervene in. And that crisis is that we really cannot continue to try to solve the problems of education, of poverty, of health care, of welfare reform within the confines of our systems that exist now. We're going to have to color outside the lines. We're going to have to look elsewhere for solutions. And those solutions involve bringing fragmented services together and focusing on the family. I think at the National Center for Family Literacy that we play a catalytic role in the nation to ensure that we're going to have quality programs for families, the most disadvantaged families in the nation, in every community. And I think when we keep that vision clear at the National Center for Family Literacy, and we envision that every mother and child who needs an education, who's living in poverty, who gets up in the morning to face another day really at the bottom of the heap,
If they can access a program, if they can get up and go and get help, that's our goal and that's our dream at the National Center for Family Literacy. We don't believe that it's going to take a great deal of money to accomplish our mission in every community in the nation. What it's going to take is a rethinking of education, a new way to look at configuring resources. In other words, we're going to need a lot of glue money, but not new money, to start the programs that we need around this nation.
Our next recipient will be Sharon Darling, founder of the National Center for Family Literacy.
I really think literacy is the stem of the flower, you know, that really has to be strong or the other petals won't be able to stay on, whether that's, you know, self-sufficiency or employment or parenting or any of the other skills, because when people can't read, they can't access knowledge or information, but they also have such low self-esteem because our society requires them to read. So when they're there feeling that way, they don't try to find new knowledge. When you look at poverty, poverty has many implications, but when you're starved inside, that's poverty. Because you don't have the gift of reading, you can't go out and access new worlds, you can't dream new dreams, you can't think new thoughts, and somebody else's thoughts are all that you're confined to because that's what you hear. And so to be able to free that up in a human being and to be able to help somebody open those doors, and then once one door opens, you see another door, and that comes with the ability to access knowledge, to read, to be able to be free. And really that's what it's about, to be able to think and contribute. I guess the greatest frustration is not being able to convince enough people that we really need to do something. You know, that there are people out there that are struggling and they just need some help. You know, they just need a little bit of help. They just need another chance, and trying to get people to really understand that and reach out and do something about it. I think that's the biggest frustration. When you can see the light in a child's eye because they learned something new, or you were sharing a story with them, or you can see their mother start to feel better about maybe taking the next step in their own life because you gave them a pat on the back or helped them learn something new, there's no greater joy and there's no better reward for you. If you could wake up every day and know that kind of joy, the rest of your life would be fulfilled. And I just think, you know, to be involved is the greatest treasure that any of us can have.